Hey everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Angela here. I'm going to go ahead and talk to you today about how not to overcommit. So I've been talking with actually a lot of my clients lately about this, and I think there's some really helpful tips. I got 3 tips for you to help you not overcommit. So I know we're going into holiday season. Some folks are just super involved in things anyway, so it may not take a holiday to kind of be in this particular position, but I want to talk through some things that can maybe help you with that. And thinking about, my peoples who are overcommitted, I know that I used to be like this at work too. I had all these committees and all these things I was trying to, projects and people I was trying to support and all these things, and it was a lot, and that's how you get burned out, and that's how you use all of your wonderful time and energy that you really maybe need to preserve during these times or just in general. So it kind of goes back to that setting boundaries, knowing your limits, all those kind of things. So I'll go ahead and talk through 3 tips that are going to be really helpful for you to not overcommit. Before I get into that though, I do have a client I was working with recently, and she is super high achieving, right? Like kind of like the perfectionist, wanting to do things beautiful and right and all that kind of stuff, wanting to be very involved in her career, in her, in her child's life, in all these organizations. And we really did a lot of work to understand where that was coming from. So I thought that was super helpful. But since then she's been able, because she's realizing it was really burning her out and kind of coming to a point of resenting other people because she was doing all this work and not getting any recognition or payback or just really a thank you. So that can be really difficult when we're putting all of our time and energy into something, but really it's our own choice, right, that we're doing this. And so she was putting all of her time and energy into things, and really it was too much. She wasn't able to stop and take that time for herself to go ahead and take care of herself, or it was difficult to say no, all those different things. So I think we can all at some point say, yes, that's been me. I've taken on too much. I've said yes instead of saying no. Sometimes saying yes can be a helpful thing to get us out of our comfort zone, but when we're already kind of pushing it to the limit and we just have too much going on, that's not helpful. So we need to figure out how to say no to those things. Okay, so the first tip I want to talk about is knowing your limit. So I want you to take a look. So we need to really stop and evaluate our life on a regular basis. I think that's something that people miss out on a lot, and that's something that I teach in my coaching program, but it's so important because things are constantly changing, things are constantly being added or taken away, or they're shifting right in our life, and so we need to figure out what is going on for us. So knowing your limits, so I want you to take a look at your schedule. And hey Nicole, thank you. I want you to take a look at your schedule and see what's going on. So I just looked at my schedule for the rest of the month, and there's a lot that I have that I'm working on in my business life. There's also, right, we've got holidays coming up. We've got Thanksgiving coming up for those that celebrate that. There's birthdays that are coming up. There's, there may be weddings, all that kind of thing. So I want you to take a really good look at your schedule for maybe this month, next month, and just see what's going on. Are you going to have to plan an event? Are you going to have to be very present for somebody or for yourself? What's going on with that? So really knowing what your schedule looks like. And then I want you to also take a look at your workload. So sometimes we're able to, not take our work home. Sometimes it's very, clock in, clock out type of thing. Sometimes we're constantly working, and a lot of times now with more folks working from home, there's sometimes that difficulty in kind of putting those boundaries of work time for ourselves. So what does your workload look like right now? Are you pushing for a big launch for something? Are you, trying to complete a specific semester or class, or, if you're a student, whatever, what does that look like for you? So you want to make sure that, and I want to back up and just say it's okay to commit to things, but you have to be aware of what that's going to do for you in your time. So, but what I'm really focusing on today, though, is how not to overcommit and how can we limit those interactions to things that are really just the high priorities. So what's your workload look like? And then what is your energy like? Like, have you been kind of feeling sick this month? Like, the weather might be changing. Are you feeling a little icky? Like, are you feeling tired? Like, what's going on with that? Do you have the energy to commit to like an organization or a program or a responsibility right now? Like, is that even within you? I think that's a super important question of reflection that we need to ask ourselves. So again, that's another piece that I got notes up here, so I want to make sure I don't forget and stay on topic. But yeah, that's going to be important for you, is knowing how much energy that you can bring to the table. Okay. And then what are your high priorities? So we want to make sure, oftentimes we get in trouble because we overcommit to all these things that we're like, how do we sign up for this? We didn't even really want to do this. It's almost like I joke about these like master classes and all these things that you can sign up for online. Like I signed up for 10 hours? I don't have 10 hours in a week to be able to watch all those things, right? So we got to really be mindful of what our high priorities are. Are your high priorities, taking care of your kids and, working on your job and, maybe you have relatives coming into town, whatever that is, right? Like it could be any priority, maybe school, maybe whatever. But we got to really figure out what's the high priority and really make sure that we're able to still focus on what we're trying to accomplish for ourselves, right? Like, so this is super important. A lot of times we get distracted from what our goals are, what our needs are to accomplish because we are doing somebody else's work or somebody else's cause. Okay, so we got to make sure that we keep that in mind. Number 2 is going to be, so number 1 was knowing your limits, right? So we just went through that. Number 2 is going to be knowing yourself. So I think this is so important because a lot of times we may have this programming that we've brought from our maybe our family of origin or the way that we've grown up or believed, where we feel like we are obligated to say yes to something or to volunteer or spend our time because we that's what it means to be a nice person, or that's what it means to be fill in the blank, right? So a lot of times we carry this with us, and so therefore if we don't do the thing, then we're not a good person, or we're not, right? So we be very mindful and reflective of what is our story, what is our upbringing, what does our self say about this, right? So when you're thinking about committing to something, taking on another responsibility or helping with something, just ask yourself, why is this important to me? Is this inspired out of guilt? Is this inspired out of pure joy, generosity? Like, is it coming from a truly beneficial place for you? So why is that important? And then again, thinking about, is guilt playing a part in this? Do I feel like I'm obligated to do this? Do I feel like I need to repay a favor or repay a debt? Like, what is it? What's my motivation for doing this thing? And another important question to ask is, what's going to trigger you? So I think along the lines of the language and the story of, what is it so is someone going to think, right? Like, are you afraid of that judgment? Is someone going to think that you're a bad person because you're not helping out with your, child's classroom? Like, or, that you're not going to be able to, attend someone's wedding or support them in that? Like, are you afraid of judgment? Like, where is that motivation and what's going to trigger you? What are those situations or thoughts or people or fears that's going to trigger you to maybe go ahead and commit to something that you don't necessarily want to? Is it an expectation? Is it an unrealistic expectation? Is it just something that you've done for so long that, is it showing up to Thanksgiving when you've done that your whole life, but really actually you don't want to do that, or you don't want to celebrate the holiday, or whatever that looks like? Is it cooking a meal every Sunday for folks when you are just exhausted and you want some time for yourself? So what is it that, it can be, and going back to setting those definitions of, commitments, right? It could be something very small up to something very large, like, coordinating a whole event. So it can really just be defined on how you define it. So that's another important point too. Okay, so that was tip number 2, was know yourself. Number 3 is going to be setting limits. So being able to vocalize if you're able or not able to commit to a responsibility or something like that, being able to vocalize that. So what does that mean? What is that going to take? What is that going to look like for you? Is it, Sally, I'm not able to support you with this particular fundraiser in December, but maybe I can support you with the next one in February or something like that, right? Like, so maybe it's kind of having some soft language. It's very clear, I'm not able, right? Like to do this, but maybe I can support you in another way, or maybe I can do this in the future. So I think there's some fear also of shutting people down, how they're going to react to us, like if they're going to be upset or mad or sad or whatever. Like I get that. But, there again, we are the ones that are responsible for ourselves and how we are going to choose to interact with these folks. So being able to vocalize that, being okay with saying no. So I say this all the time, and sometimes I struggle with it too. I get that, but we have to be okay with saying no, because what that means is that we're able to set our own boundaries and set our own limits. And no one else is really gonna be able to do that except for us, especially when it's an important time to do so. So whatever you have to do, kind of reflection maybe, or meditation, or more thought process, or talking it through with somebody, how do I say no in a way that I'm true to myself and also respecting other people, or however it is that you want to do that. But again, remembering that you're the number one person in this thought process here. And then also sometimes it's helpful to get someone that can keep you accountable. Like I remember telling my husband, I'm not doing XYZ thing anymore. If I'm doing that again, like we need to have a conversation of accountability, because I need to be held to that standard. Working in my own business, I have to hold myself accountable all the time. But also, again, that could be friends, that could be family that you trust. It could be a coach, a therapist, whatever that supports you in this process, especially if it's super difficult for you, right? Like, so anytime we're trying something new, it can be a little difficult and challenging. So we might need that extra support when it's time to, go ahead and implement something new that's going to be helpful for us. So again, I talked to tons of folks, that like more so women, right, that struggle with this. And so, again, I encourage you to go back, if you're catching this at the end, go back and rewatch the video. If you're watching for the first time, I said this a little late, but just say that you're here now. But if you're watching the replay, make sure to tell me in the comments that you're watching, and if this was helpful to you, what tips were the most helpful to you. All right, and stay tuned. So every week you can come back to my page, and I'll be doing some helpful tips and suggestions, and just sharing some things that may be beneficial, right, to everybody. And then we'll be doing more live videos in the group as well. So I'll put a link to that here. And I hope this was helpful for everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye.